Welcome back to the Introduction to Linked Data course using Python and MongoDB. Last time we went over framing linked data subgraphs as documents, serializing things as JSON-LD via the PyLD processor, and in this lesson we'll go over document collection search. So taking that framed collection of documents, where last time we used this JSON-LD frame to get a collection of Nobel laureate documents that included name, birthplace embedded with at least country, and affiliation with at least country embedded. And we got that framed graph and exported it. And so now we're going to do document collection search using the MongoDB query language. So the first thing I'll do is I will use the PyMongo driver. I have installed MongoDB on my system. The next thing I'll do is from the client I will get the Nobel database. This is reminiscent from what we did before in an earlier lesson where we structured a quote-unquote database as a dictionary where the keys were the different collections and etc. So Mongo has that kind of abstraction. So from the client we can get various databases, and here we're reaching in to create and get the Nobel database. And I will also explicitly load our framed JSON-LD collection of laureates from last time and load it into the framed collection. And now in order to load this into MongoDB, I will take our given database, the Nobel database on the client, and I will just use this accessor to say the laureates collection, drop it, and then in that laureates collection I will insert many, and I am going to use a list comprehension here. So for every document in my framed graph, I'm going to associate with that document an additional key value pair of the at context that will be our JSON-LD context. So now when I look at the result value inserted IDs, we see we've inserted 713 laureate documents. And now we can use document-oriented search using the Mongo query language as opposed to Sparkle. So for example, using a markdown cell, what fraction of laureates are affiliated with an institution in a country that is not their country of birth? So here I will insert a little helper function just as list. So if we have something that is not a list, we can say a single document, we can make it a document, a list of length 1. That will help us with some of our processing later in the cells. So what I'm doing here is I'm keeping track of the number of affiliated with non-birth country institutions, so those number of laureates, and I'm using an iterator using the .find method to find all of the documents in this collection with no filter. So for every document in this collection, this iterator, I'm doing a set comprehension here. So for if we take as a list all of the affiliations in the document. So for each affiliation in the list of affiliations in the document, whether there's one affiliation or multiple, we're going to get it as a list. And so for each affiliation within there, we're going to dig into the countries for the affiliation, and we're going to get all of those actual IDs, those URIs for the countries. And so those are all the countries that are affiliated, and the second part is getting the countries of birth. So as a list, the birthplace, the other thing at the root level, key to the document. So for every place in that birthplace, get all of those countries of birth. And if the length of the set of countries that we've gotten through the affiliation and the length of the countries that we've gotten through the birthplace of the document, if those differ. So if there's some length to that, if there are countries that the laureate is affiliated with in particular, because this is a set subtraction, where they're not also listed in the birthplace of that laureate, then okay, then we found a laureate that has an affiliation country that's not a birth country. So that's how we're going through that, and we're able to do that through this document-oriented approach, where again we've gone ahead and framed this here so that we know the structure here. We have all the data that we need in each of these documents, and so that's how we can get that same thing. And we'll use our as percent function here with this counter, and we can use the count documents with an open filter method on our laureates collection to get as percentage. So this was using the document-oriented approach, where we have all of our information in the documents and we can just iterate through it. So we'll go with also this other question here, as before. I'll make it a markdown cell. What fraction of laureates are affiliated exclusively with institutions that are not in their country of birth? And so here, I'll fill this out for you and walk you through the cell. It's a similar construction. Again, it's document oriented. We have all the information that we need framed from our documents. So for every document, we're going to get out all of the affiliations that we have framed in the document, all those associations in every country in each country of the association. So here are all the countries affiliation, and again the countries of birth. And what we're asking for now is if countries through the affiliation is disjoint with the countries of birth, so that there are no affiliations with countries that they were born in, then we can increment that. And again, we can use set logic here. So you can see how this might be more straightforward logically, to think in terms of this document-oriented mindset, to collect all of the things that you need for laureates that have to do with these attributes, and collect them in a frame and use this base logic across each of them. So that may be preferable to a graph-oriented view, where you can kind of collect all of the stuff that you need, all of the documents as subgraphs, and collect those, and so we get a similar result. Now we'll get a little bit into the MongoDB filter language. For example, what I can do here is I can filter by DBO birthplace, and I can use this dot notation to reach into that subfield of this birthplace subdocument within the document. So birthplace, has an ID, but it also has perhaps other things. But we can search specifically where that ID field, where we do this dot separation for Mongo, and again we have our full qualifier here, where that's equal to this country Denmark. And again, we're able to use the @context to not have to specify a full URI here, because we have the country prefix. And from that, we can also, in addition to the filter, we can project out only specific parts of the document that we need. So we can say, for example, that we only need the name. That's the top level key, so we want that. And the underscore ID, which is something that Mongo documents automatically define, we don't need that. And we can list out all of those, again, just like this for loop, as a result of iterating over this cursor. So that's what we have the list. And here we get a list from all of our laureates in our laureates collection, or our framed laureates collection, all of the names of documents that match this sense of where the birthplace ID is this URI for the country of Denmark. Let's see. I think So here's another example. So we might be able to reach into for each document through the affiliation, again dot syntax, and use the fully qualified country, and again dot syntax again to reach in the ID. So these are all the laureates who have an affiliation institution that in turn is associated with the country of Denmark. And again, getting the names of those people, I imagine there'd be some overlap there. And just a little bit more about some of the affordances of MongoDB in particular, but in general, I think a lot of document-oriented databases will have these things. So in addition to the finding, we have these functions, as we saw in Sparkle. At the top level of the select, you can use these keywords like distinct to say among level laureates, get all of the distinct birthplaces, or rather the ID values, the URIs of the birthplace attributes. And so there are 75 distinct birthplace countries among these laureates that satisfied all our conditions, that satisfied the framing. And we can do something similar with this nested property where we reach in through the dotted syntax. So there are 29 distinct countries that are annotated as the countries of the affiliations of the laureates that again satisfy our criteria in the collection of laureates having affiliations and that have countries and that have birthplaces that are countries associated with those laureates. And finally, I just would like to show, while we're not going to get too into the Mongo language, I just wanted to give you a taste of this document-oriented approach to having framed graph data and working with it in a document-oriented manner, and knowing how to do document-oriented filtering and projection. We can also always Mongo export from any given Mongo database into, in this case, all of our notable laureates into a JSON lines format. So that's one JSON document per line, very nice for the Unix tool set. So that exports those records. And I'll go ahead and gzip that, and that will be available in the course directory as well. So I hope this was helpful. We went through a lot in this lesson about document collection search using MongoDB via the PyMongo driver. It helped us query our framed linked data subgraphs as documents via JSON LD, via the PyLD processor. And so we got a sense of how we can have both the graph-oriented view with Sparkle and RDF and have that interchange with JSON and JSON LD tooling for document orientation. So we can seamlessly go back and forth between this graph-oriented view and this more focused document-oriented view, depending on what kinds of data products we have and how we want to facilitate our analyses. I hope this course was helpful for you. Good return on your time investment. Feel free to email me, let me know if you have any additional questions. And again, thank you for learning a little bit about linked data using Python and using RDFlib and PyLD and MongoDB. Thank you.